Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Tutorials by Voices of Mars with me, Mars. So today we're going to talk about Zenithal Priming and any type of Zenithal painting in general and its uses on painting your miniatures. Now, what is Zenithal painting? The technical term for it is, don't quote me verbatim for this, but it's a painting technique that you use to visualize the lighting, the lighting and the shadow, the highlights and the shadow on the miniatures by using certain gradient or certain steps and spraying paint on them. In a much simpler term is, if you have a bunch of models that you need to figure out your highlights and shadow, this technique is going to be a lot easier for you to use. It's not the best technique, but it is, I think, in my humble opinion, it is the most efficient way to show yourself where the highlights are and where the shadows are for your miniatures. Now, to illustrate this a lot more simpler, I have a couple of models to show you as we speak right now the difference between regular priming versus Zenithal priming. And then later on in the video, I'm going to show you the difference between Zenithal priming and Zenithal painting. It's pretty much the same technique, it's just you're using different colors of paint. Now, without further ado, I'm basically just going to walk through what's happening in the screen right now while I'm priming and preparing and painting all the other stuff.
So right now over here you can see that I'm preparing the model for priming. I'm going to use black first. These are the paints that I use. I use Surface Primer, Vallejo, and Badger Patriot 105. And I'm going to spray in black completely, all the way through, no gaps, nothing. The model wasn't prepared for display, so I didn't fill up any gaps or anything. It's just to show you guys what I mean by Zenithal priming. So, and then after I prime black over here, I'll wait for it to dry. But right now, what you're seeing is I'm blowing air onto it, so it will dry faster. Now, I was showing the black paint that was on my airbrush. Now I'm adding white to it to make it gray, and I'm shooting it at an angle that's not flat, gray all over the place, so the bottom part is still like pure black because I'm shooting it at an angle while I'm spinning the actual model while priming it. Now I shoot out more of the gray out and then add more white so it's a lighter gray, and then I shoot it at a higher angle at 25%. So whatever that's on from the bottom and the first shot of dark gray is now still just the shadow part. Shooting at 25 degrees angle for the, basically this is the first highlight of the the Zenithal priming. And then after that, I completely remove all the gray, just pure white now, and I'm gonna shoot it at a 10 degrees angle from all the way straight from the top. So it's only hitting the high area. I hope that kind of makes sense. And then I had to remove some spackles that I didn't want there. So you'll see the light part there. That's basically where all my highlights are. And then the black, pure black, is basically all my shadows, as you can see over here with the close-up. I'll explain it a little better soon. If you guys have any questions so far, just feel free to comment down below or email me or contact me through Facebook. But that's pretty much what Zenithal painting or Zenithal priming is.
Now, you can see from these models over here, I'm going to use a GW model, unfortunately, and also a MacLeod model. This is one of the depleted. You can see that there is some kind of shading to it. Pretty much this is what Zenithal priming is, sort of. This one is more Zenithal painting. This one is Zenithal priming. Now, if you notice on certain areas like over here, here in the bottom, and on top of the head over there, you'll see there's white spots or lighter spots, while areas where in the shadows are going to be dark, like black. And over here for Zenithal painting, you'll see the top parts are light gray, while on the lower region, like around here and here, where shadows are supposed to be, are very dark gray. Now, that's achieved with different color sets than this. This is just straight up black and then mix it with white and then pure white, while this one is, I added like a little bit blue into, or Space Wolf grays and stuff like that to make it more like cool gray. But the contrast here is really easy to look at. And let me just spin this a little bit. So you'll see some white spots or lighter spots on top, you know, where the highlights are supposed to be, and the the darker spot from the bottom where the shadows are supposed to be. Now I've also mentioned Zenithal painting. So basically Zenithal is basically just, you know, creating those steps to create the highlights. Now with Zenithal painting, you're using different color instead of using the shadows, I mean the black primer as the shadow, and then as you gradually go up from gray to white, and then using one color that you thin down to cover that whole area that you just primed to create a certain gradation of, you know, a base color that you wanted, like for example green. You're actually creating these type of gradation using the green itself. So let's say you start off with the darkest green that you have as the shadow, so you just cover it as regular, you know, everything is covered like as you were priming it, so you're base coating the whole entire thing with that dark green, and then you will shoot it at a straight angle like this without going from under a lighter green, and then after that you go higher at 45 degrees angle and shoot it around with a lighter green than that second green. And this is usually the color green that you wanted your model mostly as, and then finally use the lightest green that you have all the way from 25 degrees angle to 15 degrees angle on top, like I showed you earlier on the Zenithal priming. It is an easy method, especially used on Space Marine armors, or if you have a batch of models like gremlins, or if you have a batch of model of goblins and orcs. It is so easy to use the technique to figure out what's the highlight and what's the shadow on your model. After that, all you gotta do is just clean up the detail with different paints, like, you know, if you're painting armors, whatever. The skin is already done if you're doing orc skin. Everything else is just details like eyes, you know. This is a very efficient way of getting your tabletop models out really quickly. Now we already know what Zenithal priming is, or Zenithal painting. What is it for? Is it just to cut time? Not really. I do a certain thing that when I'm painting, I need references on which one is the highlight point and which one is the shadow point, and Zenithal painting actually helps me do that a lot. Now what I do more than I think most people that I know of, I take pictures of work in progress and reference shots, especially when it comes to, you know, Zenithal priming. I can tell which ones are the highlight points, that so I wouldn't miss it, except for the faces usually, because I do that directional priming where the face is brighter, or the focus point is going to be brighter than most of the other places out of the miniatures. So I use Zenithal priming to see, it's basically you're making your miniature as color by numbers, because you'll see the black areas, that's going to be your shadow, so most likely even if you cover it with a light thin color, it's not going to change. I mean, it's going to be darker version of your particular color. Now after that, you know, the gray area are your midtones, which is what mostly the color is going to look like, while the white areas on your miniature is going to be the lightest point of highlight. So that's what I use Zenithal priming for. And when I don't want to do Zenithal priming, I usually do Zenithal painting for base coats, especially with models with a lot of skin. And again, this is emphasizing on using these only for reference point, and using these on when you're trying to paint in a batch instead of painting, you know, your display model whatsoever. So after I got the reference point from the Zenithal priming, and then I would cover it with regular color where it covers the whole entire thing again. So that's why I need to take pictures to come back to it and look, okay, these are my highlight points and these are my shadow points, and then I'll try to replicate it with the highlights and the shadows with, you know, whatever color that I'm working with. So hopefully you have a better understanding of what Zenithal priming is and Zenithal painting, and what it is for, or what's being used for. So hopefully the tutorial is helpful for you. If you have any questions or any comments, please put them down below. Thanks again guys for watching, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye!